The following is made possible by the Arpin Group and by ReNewable Now. The International Society of Sustainability Professionals presents ISSP Profiles in Excellence, where leaders in sustainability share their experience so that others may learn. In this edition, we feature Maureen Hart, Executive Director of ISSP.
I'm Maureen Hart, and I've been in the sustainability field for the last 20 years. I started off, my background before that was information management, and my interest when I heard about sustainability was helping people figure out how do you measure progress, because I know how easy it is to start measuring things but not actually have the right metrics, and so you really never get to where you need to go. So for 20 years I had my own consulting business. This past January, I took over the position as Executive Director of the International Society of Sustainability Professionals. I've been a member of ISSP not quite since the beginning, but since probably a year after it started. Didn't really get too much involved with it because a lot of what was going on at that point was on the other side of the country, and knew some of the networking that was going on. But then started getting more involved with some of the folks that were in ISSP, which is to me really the value of ISSP is the networking that you're able to do. And so I got involved with Darcy Hitchcock and Marcia Willard, who were two of the co-founders, who had an assessment package called SCORE, a very high-level sustainability assessment tool. And because of the metrics work I'd been doing, I realized that a lot of times people will say, oh, we're sustainable. But we really know that we're not. You want to be able to say that you're making good progress and people are doing a lot of work, but ultimately there's a long way to go. And so what really fascinated me about the SCORE assessment tool was its ability to show you, yeah, you're making progress, but here's where we need to get to. And here are the things that we need to do to get there. It's also an internal assessment tool, so it's not the sort of thing that you put a big report out to the public saying, oh, we're wonderful. You have to really get to look hard at what you're doing, and you talk about it internally so you can actually admit to what some of the warts are. Where are some of the spots that you're not doing well, where you've got the Band-Aids. And so that's what got me into working with SCORE. I went into a partnership with Darcy and Marcia to turn it into an online application, and then started reaching out to more ISSP members about how they could be using it, and realized that it needed to be a tool that was owned by ISSP. It shouldn't be a private, for-profit organization's tool. And so last year when ISSP decided they needed a new executive director because Marcia Willard, who was the founder, decided to step down, I thought, boy, this would be a really great way to merge the two of them. We could get SCORE to ISSP, and if I was the executive director, I could then help move that through. And so that's actually what happened, is I threw my hat in the ring, and they happened to select me, and here I am. To me, the biggest benefit for members is the networking. And it may be networking in terms of coming together at conferences. We've now had our third conference, and people have been raving about the connections that they're making here, the talks that they're listening to. There's some really, really intelligent, thoughtful people who are presenting on a variety of topics. But there's also the networking you can do in between events, because we do have an online resource where you can connect with members. We also have webinars that we do for professional development, and we also have training for people that are just getting into the field. We have some entry-level training. One of the things that I think is really needed, not so much for ISSP, but for the profession in general, is to professionalize it. People have been doing sustainability for a while. There are a lot of people that jump into the field and say, oh, I'm a sustainability professional, but what does it really mean? And when someone says to me, oh, I'm working on sustainable growth, well, sustainable growth is an oxymoron, because the only thing that grows exponentially forever is cancer, and that usually kills whatever it's growing on. Sustainability is about improving continually and maintaining quality of life for everyone. How do we provide that? And the current way we're doing it is not sustainable. And so to me, the profession really needs to get to that next level where there's ways to say, what are the credentials? Do you have the credentials? Have you proven that you really know how to do this and that you know how to work with people? Because it's not just understanding what sustainability is all about. It's also being able to explain it to other people, to be able to engage stakeholders, and there's a lot of stakeholders that need to be engaged, either internal to an organization or your customers, your suppliers, the communities you're in. But there's also making the business case for it. Right, because it's one thing to say, oh, it's the right thing to do, but if we can't figure out how to finance it, then you're not going to get it done. So being able to professionalize the profession is really where it needs to go. And so my vision for ISSP is that we will develop, we've actually already started developing, but we will actually implement a sustainability professional certification process where there's a lot of different ways we might do it. We're working on that now, so I'm not going to give you all the details. But basically, it's so people can say, yes, I am a professional, and here are my credentials, and here's what I know how to do it. I got interested in sustainability when I went back to school to get a master's in the early 90s. I'd been working in information management, doing a lot of data analysis. And one of my key clients was the EPA. And they would come to me and they'd say, okay, here's what we want to know. And I'd have to say, well, I can't tell you that because you didn't collect the right data. But they'd still insist on getting reports because this is the data. So here's the reports I can give you. They're not actually helping make decisions, but we've got all the data. The problem is that people start to create what I call data monsters. And once you've got a data monster, you have to keep feeding the data monster, especially if you're a government agency. And this applies not just to, federal government, but also local governments, state governments, and also large organizations, large, manufacturers or corporations. You create these data monsters and you have to keep feeding them, even though they're not giving you the information you need. And so I thought, my background and my experience, my expertise is on how do we measure things and how do we say, what is it we want to know and what's the smallest amount of data that we need to tell that. And so that's when I learned about sustainability. It was the sustainable community movement was just getting started then. Seattle was starting their program, Santa Monica was starting their program. And I thought, boy, these communities are looking at indicators of sustainability. Are they measuring the right things? And so that's what got me started on. I did a research project on it. I ended up writing a book called The Guide to Sustainable Community Indicators and started doing training around the country. The EPA actually had me develop a training course, a Train the Trainers course on sustainability indicators. And that's what got me started into the metrics. And then it's like, okay, so now what are companies measuring? And so I started working with the Lowell Center for Sustainable Production, and they were looking at what are the indicators of sustainable production. And then eventually ended up running across Darcy Hitchcock and Marcia Willett in their SCORE assessment, which sort of fit right into that. And so that's my passion. When I heard about sustainability, it just made sense to me. And so I wanted to see how I could help do it.
Visit sustainabilityprofessional.org for more about profiles in sustainability excellence and other exciting programs from ISSP, the world's leading professional association of sustainability practitioners.